It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. I love to show you stories that display the power of local news. Local news gets things done in this town when politicians do not. When you try to go through the proper channels in the LA City Council or the LA County Board of Supervisors, you get a lot of inaction, you get a lot of inertia. When you go to the local news, problems seem to get solved a heck of a lot quicker because the last thing any elected official wants in the city of Los Angeles is to look like an incompetent fool. Well, about a week ago, all the local news channels were descending upon a blight house in the Latuna Canyon area, a property that had a whole bunch of abandoned cars, propane tanks, had things that were screwing up the water. The EPA was coming out. The city had been dealing with this for years and years and years with no action. Neighbors had been complaining and complaining and complaining until they finally got the local news involved. Let's play you a little of the initial piece that Fox 11 ran when they went to the Sun Valley hoarding house about a week ago.
An unlicensed dump and hoarding nightmare, as a Latuna Canyon residents describe, a neighbor's property they've been complaining about for years.
Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez live for us in Latuna Canyon with that story. Christina.
You know, this is beyond hoarding. Keep in mind the EPA was out here. They took soil samples of not only the soil but a stream bed and found highly toxic levels of things like lead.
Well, that's not good. You're telling me the city couldn't do anything about somebody poisoning the water in the area that's affecting all the other neighbors because they've got a bunch of garbage lining up their backyard because they've got mental problems?
They had to call out a team from Camp Pendleton at one point to make some ammunition they found in there to render it safe. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Take a look at this.
Guys just got ammo sitting out there in the sun? What's going on?
From the ground, you can see the RVs, vehicles, just junk. But it's from Skyfox. One can truly appreciate the enormity of a hoarding situation on the Latuna Canyon property. Neighbors say they've been complaining about to city, county, even federal officials for years.
Well, the EPA report that came out in 2021 says that the soil is toxic, has heavy metals in it, but they're not willing to clear the property until the cars, over 109 cars on the property, are removed.
Wait, so the EPA can't do anything about the toxic water unless the city removes all the cars, and the city can't remove all the cars, so we're just going to keep letting this problem persist? I thought we had a whole bunch of environmentalists working in the government that wanted to make sure we had a cleaner, greener Los Angeles.
CHP has found 5 cars that are of interest, either stolen or involved in a robbery on the property. They will not remove the cars.
You can't remove a stolen car from private property? What's going on here?
Because it's dangerous for them to go on the property.
That area is so toxic, the CHP can't remove the stolen cars that are in the Hoarder house in Latuna Canyon.
Because it's dangerous for them to go on the property.
The fire marshal comes out here yearly and checks my brush clearance, and every time they're here I say, well, okay, so I'm stopping my brush clearance at my property. What about the adjoining property? He goes, oh yeah, well, I'm not going to go on that property.
Hello?
No, if you're a rule follower, you get punished and you get complained at from the city. If you're a rule breaker, nothing can be done to you. As we continue to listen to this story, and I'm sure you have a case that's not nearly as extreme as this, maybe you do, but I am curious, and I've got a little story of my own, but I'd love to talk to you at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Do you have a blight house in your neighborhood? Do you have one a-hole who definitely makes the neighborhood stick out like a sore thumb? I got one house in this neighborhood. I get a beautiful, gorgeous neighborhood. I love my neighbors. They're all so sweet. A ton of them have fruit trees, and I get lemons as gifts. And now that I have my fruit trees, I can give back limes and tangelos. Well, the tangelos, we're still waiting for them to bear fruit, but soon there's going to be tangelos. However, there's one house that is around the corner in this neighborhood where, well, let's see. How much can I say without getting in too much trouble? The owner of that house lived there for a very long time until he passed away. His no good son took over, and the fruit trees that are in the front of the house constantly are bearing fruit, oranges and grapefruits all the time, and he never picks them. They sit there and they rot on the front of the house all summer long. It attracts the cats, it attracts the birds, and nothing can be done. Sometimes there's trash in front of the house. That's a very minor complaint. But that's the blight house in my neighborhood. Then there's the guy on the other side of the neighborhood that sometimes likes to leave his gate open with his very big, mean dog that's not on a leash. But that's neither here nor there. But if you've got an a-hole hoarder, if you've got a blight house in your neighborhood, I'd like to talk to you at 800-222-KABC.
Hello? We couldn't find the man who lives on the property, but did leave phone messages with his 80-year-old mother who owns the land and has told neighbors.
She enables her son because she loves him and she's worried about him.
Is that what she says to you?
Yeah, that's what she says to me. That's also what she said to the judge in the hearing.
So that was a week ago when you had Fox 11 and KCAL and KTLA all descend upon the Latuna Canyon Hoarder house. Apparently, it's been a problem for years, but local news finally got told about it, and local news went to cover it, and the images that were shown overhead by the helicopters were shocking of how much junk had piled up in this guy's backyard, how he has such a huge property. Who knows that apparently he's not mentally sound to even be on, and the mother lives somewhere else and she's taking care of it. It's a really bizarre story. But again, what we're here to talk about is the power of the local news. And the power of the local news is strong because even though the city has been dealing with this blight property for years and years and years, and later on Monica Rodriguez will give us the timeline, within 1 week, 1 week of the local news covering this story, guess what? Law enforcement and the fire department descended upon the Latuna Canyon Hoarder house. This was earlier today.
We've been reporting on a junk-filled property in Sun Valley that has neighbors on edge and the homeowner facing legal action.
Yeah, those neighbors getting some action now. Police swarmed the area today, and as KCAL's Jeff Nguyen shows us, the bomb squad was even called out to the property.
From SkyCal, we could see police officers, firefighters, and other city workers on the large property in the Latuna Canyon area of Sun Valley.
Gee, I wonder what got the city to take this so seriously that they were finally going to do something about this. Could it be that they looked bad?
Neighbors like Elena Malone have complained about junk piling up.
Remember the Silmar house with all the RVs? Another Monica Rodriguez area where nothing was done about this property that had 25 RVs. They were turning it into this slum and destroying the plumbing, and the city could do nothing about it, until the local news started covering it. And then all of a sudden, the city's like, yeah, we're going to turn off your power.
Neighbors like Elena Malone have complained about junk piling up, like an ambulance sitting on top of a shipping container.
It's been scary. It's been stressful.
She says the man who lives next door has burned propane and stockpiled fuel.
There's an underground spring that runs from that property right.
He's just burning fuel in his backyard. Somebody is severely mentally ill in Latuna Canyon, and there's nothing the city can do about it.
There's an underground spring that runs from that property right under mine and under all the neighbors down the hill, and that is a very big concern.
LA City Council member Monica Rodriguez says complaints about the property go back to 2019. In November of that year, the city attorney filed a lawsuit against the homeowners, followed by court hearings in 2020. But court proceedings were either canceled or rescheduled because of the pandemic. In March of 2021, we covered a fire that burned through Latuna Canyon and the property. Earlier this year, the owner, Mary Ferreira, served a day in jail for citations stemming from the junkyard.
She was sentenced to 180 days. She served a day.
She lives at another home where we tried to talk to her, but no one answered. The LAPD says Ferreira's son is the person who lives at the property, and he was arrested Tuesday for an unrelated matter on outstanding warrants.
Oh, okay. So maybe the guy who had all the stolen cars in his backyard might have been up to some other criminal activity, and yet nothing was done about this until the local news last week showed the city of Los Angeles, the Southern California area, what was going on in Latuna Canyon.
On Monday, a judge issued a warrant at the property.
We did have some bomb detection canine with us today so that we could inspect to see if there were any hazardous materials or explosive devices. And that was just out of an abundance of caution.
You know, the loose ammo that's sitting in the 110-degree sunlight.
And that was just out of an abundance of caution.
Once we know with greater detail what is being documented at this juncture, we will then know what the court will afford the city of Los Angeles to do to mitigate this going forward.
So we're just inspecting it. We're still not clearing out things like the stolen cars or the propane tanks?
Elena Malone says,
or whatever is polluting the water?
Elena Malone says it's not just the junk. She's had to deal with the road being blocked during wildfires.
I would love to leave the property, but at this point I would never sell that property to another family because that's unfair for them to have to be stepped into this big issue.
Rodriguez says prior to Wednesday, inspectors could not go onto the property because the owners were dragging out legal proceedings. They will now present what they found to the court to figure out what's next. In Sun Valley, Jeff Nguyen, KCAL News.
Boy, this city will go down your throat if you try to build a pool in your backyard without a permit. But if you've got a blight house that is got hazardous materials and stolen cars and you're polluting the water, all of a sudden the city can't do anything about it for years and years and years and years and years. Look, I don't expect anybody to call in with a neighbor this bad, but if you got a blight house in your neighborhood, you got some crazy hoarder in your neighborhood, I'd love to hear what you're dealing with. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Wendy in Northeast LA. Wendy, hello.
Hi, I was calling because I had a blight house across the street, and they had overgrown bushes and a lot of dogs that would get out, and they would attack people and children, and also some abandoned cars in the actual grass, and that's supposed to be illegal. So I ended up reporting it to the city, and I followed up with the city attorney. And also I found out that they weren't the owners, so I was able to contact the owners as well. So we were able to get them out of the neighborhood. But it took a couple of months to do it, but they've been here for years. I just assumed that they were the homeowners, but yeah, they would also have a lot of police activity, and it was a nightmare.
Oh, gosh. I bet the landlords were shocked to hear what was going on their property.
Well, the thing is, they were here for many years, so I'm surprised that they weren't even aware, or they would just, let them be and nobody would say anything. But, of course, I would always, was wondering, why is it that these people are just getting away with it? So sure enough, it turns out that they weren't the landlords. So that was actually a good thing, and it was definitely before the pandemic and everything. But it seems after that, everything just kind of went downhill. The city didn't want to do anything. So, yeah, definitely keep a paper trail, emails to the city, and just, they'll contact the landlord eventually.
Well, I'm so glad that you did that. It's probably a big relief to the rest of your neighborhood. I could say, as someone that has small dogs, if there was anybody in this neighborhood that had loose, angry dogs all the time, I would be livid.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I would call the city, and the same thing. Once the city would come, they would already put them inside the yard. But there was little kids that they would be walking to school, and it was just terrible to see these little kids screaming because they would get attacked. But anyway, that was one of the issues. It was just one after the other. So I can totally relate with what you're talking about, and it's good you're talking about this because people need to do that paper trail with emails and calls and definitely follow up.
Oh, yeah. And if the city's not being responsive, that's when you call the local news. Wendy, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. After years of inaction, police and firefighters and the bomb squad finally descended upon the Hoarder house in Latuna Canyon because the local news showed what it looked like there a week ago. If you've got a blight house in your neighborhood, I'd love to know what you're dealing with. It could not be this bad. I don't think you have any neighbors that have a bunch of stolen cars in their backyard. Maybe you do. But let me know what you're dealing with. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. I guess I should feel blessed The worst thing going on in my neighborhood is the guy that does not pick his fruit trees and the oranges rot all over the pavement. But that's just one house. Let's go to Joe in Hemet. Joe, hello.
Hey, how are you, Randy? Good to hear your voice. Anyway, just want to tell you quick, I bought some property a while ago, built a house, and it's in an area where you can only build stick houses. So a guy came, rang my bell and rang another bell and said, they said, we need to talk to you. And I said, no, you don't need to talk to me. I don't own all this. Well, I want to bring a mobile home in, nice one. I said, can't do it. That's why we bought this property. So anyway, he did, and they brought in two halves of the mobile home. And if you could believe it or not, somebody in the middle of the night hooked up to half of that mobile home, drove it out in the middle of nowhere, and totally thrashed it with sledgehammers. I couldn't believe anybody could do that. But you know what? 30, 60 days, the county, the code enforcement, nobody did nothing. Well, some terrible person towed that away and destroyed the whole thing. Guess what? The guy turned around and sold the lot.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he didn't want to be there anymore.
Well, no, you know what? Sometimes you can't. This is baloney. You make all these laws like you know more than us. In L.A., you won't stand behind anything. Why do we waste the money making laws and stuff? I don't get it. And then you got to hire an attorney to enforce the laws and the covenants and restrictions that you obey, and you paid extra for the property so you could build a stick house. Guess what? That's the old New York. I said, you know what? Somebody's going to do it the old way. And guess what? Someone did that. All the power to them.
Oh, I always love hearing your stories, Joe. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Oh, my goodness. It's really funny to me how this house has known stolen cars in the backyard. This guy had warrants, and CHP couldn't even do anything because the ground that the stolen cars are on is too dangerous to be walking on. What is going on out there in Latuna Canyon? It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. I want to do this right now because usually I don't give away the incredible tickets that we have until later in the show, but I feel like doing it right now because you're here. I'm so glad you're here. And we're happy to have you as a part of the Wang Gang. 790 KABC welcomes Bruce Hornsby and the Noisemakers at the Libby Bowl in Ojai, July 28th. Ojai is beautiful. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by The Canyon, where music meets the soul. Good luck dialing. When we come back, we have an update on Metro and their new chair, Janice Hahn.
I love the bus driver.
It's my new favorite drop.
I love the bus driver.
It's not going to be a contender for drop of the year, but there's just something about the way Janice talks.
That's your final warning.
We'll find out just how much Janice does love the bus driver.
I love the bus driver.
Next on the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well. I try to read and respond to every single one, read a few of them on the air. RandyKABC@gmail.com. That's RandyKABC@gmail.com. Well, yesterday we took a whole bunch of your calls on Janice Hahn's pledge to ride the Metro.
I haven't ridden Metro as much as I should have in the past, but I'm going to make it a point to ride more while I am chair.
If you missed that episode, you can download the podcast. Go to KABC.com, click on podcast, or search for the KABC News Blitz on Apple Podcasts. It was a real good time. Well, I got to give Janice Hahn credit because we did that show, and immediately, what do I see the next day? Janice Hahn did a 9-minute interview that included a full-on ride-along on the bus for CBS, for KCAL. And you know what? It was great. Janice was being Janice.
I love the bus driver.
But she also was addressing crime. She was answering questions like, what do we do about weapons? She was answering questions like, how do we get the criminals off the trains? How do we get more increased law enforcement's presence? She was very confused why she didn't see any sheriff's deputies when she was touring the lines. And Robert Looney even got asked in the interview, and he said, well, we like to keep the officers in the car so they can respond to the bus that has the problem. But isn't the whole point to have a uniform presence as a deterrent? We'll see. So maybe there's going to be some improvements. And so far, Janice Hahn has had this job as chair of the Metro Board for less than a week. And I'm pretty happy to say I can report some good progress is being made. We told you a little bit yesterday about how after all of the insane violence that was going on, especially on the Red Line, they decided to institute a pilot program in the North Hollywood station called Tap to Exit, where they knew that most of the violence was being committed by people that don't even pay the fare. Well, if you get rid of all the people that aren't paying the fare, maybe you won't have as much crime. Turns out it's been wildly successful. And it turns out, after all the agitators and the activists and the ACT LA people finally shut up and started complaining about something else, the average riders like it. They like knowing that the only people that are on the train are people that are supposed to be there. And by the way, if you think, oh, it's a poverty thing, how dare they go after the poor? There are all these programs that the city has where you could pretty much ride for free, but you still have a card. You still have an account. We still know who you are. So the people that are not paying are either the drug addicts, the homeless, not mutually exclusive, or the people that are looking to rob you. So we get them off the train. We have more law enforcement at the entry point for the Red Line. It's been such a success. And the thing that was irritating me was that it was a pilot program for one station on one line. Well, it turns out, due to the new management in charge, they're going to expand this maybe to the whole system. Even though a week ago they were saying we can't afford that. Here for more, here's NBC4.
6:42 right now. The man charged with stabbing a woman to death on a Metro train is set to appear in court today. 66-year-old Myrna Sosa was stabbed in the neck during an unprovoked attack in April. Jail records show that Elliot Nowden has been arrested several times, including once in February for assault at the same red light station in the Valley.
Just remember, November's coming up real soon, and Gascon has got to go.
Quite frankly,
because the guy that murdered that 66-year-old security guard had been arrested for assault months prior, and of course, nothing happened to him.
we got some wobbly knees allies.
And that's just one case in a series of violent attacks on Metro that we've been reporting about this year.
Now, since then, leaders have been trying to improve safety for riders. They recently found success with a new pilot program called Tap to Exit. NBC4's John Caddis-Klimack is live in Universal City with details on the big plans for expansion. John?
Hey, good morning, guys. Can you imagine what Tap to Exit means? It means you tap your card to exit. And the idea is when you exit, they know that you've paid your fare. Now, it's only happening right now at the North Hollywood stations where we are here at Universal City. It doesn't happen when you get off the train here. But if you take this over.
Hold on. John Caddis-Klimack and the NBC4 field crew couldn't go outside of the Universal City station to do this story. They couldn't get on the Red Line up one station to North Hollywood to actually film the station with the Tap to Exit program. Look, I understand there are time constraints. There are budgetary issues. Maybe there's even safety issues. But I always find it really, really, really funny when you know exactly where the local TV stations are, and NBC4 is in Universal Studios. It's in Universal City. So yeah, we're going to film the Universal City Metro station. It's like how if you're ever watching KCAL, and if you happen to know, KCAL studios are at CBS Radford on Ventura Boulevard. Well, have you ever noticed how many live shots of reporters for KCAL are in Studio City? It's because they're there already.
Now, it's only happening right now at the North Hollywood stations where we are here at Universal City. It doesn't happen when you get off the train here, but if you take this over to North Hollywood and you get off there, it would work for you. And we're noticing...
You could have done that, John Caddis-Klimack.
That passengers are saying they're noticing a big difference.
I've noticed there hasn't been like a lot of aggressive people and not so much trash as well.
Not as many aggressive people, not as much trash, because the trash people are not allowed on the trains because they weren't going to pay to be there anyway. And even though it's like $1.50, $1.75, it's not the price.
Yeah, Metro surveyed 100 riders at the North Hollywood station where this pilot program started. They say 9 in 10.
You know what? It's funny. It's funny how sometimes the way life works out, the things that you do, just when you look back at them, they have so much more meaning than they ever did when you did them. What am I talking about? In 2009, I was invited by a fan of the podcast I was hosting, the Pretty Good Podcast, to participate in a Hollywood zombie walk. So, a whole bunch of people dressed up in zombie makeup and tattered clothes. This is like right around the time The Walking Dead came out. And boarded the Red Line in North Hollywood, took it all the way to Hollywood and Highland. And then you had thousands of people in their 20s with nothing else to do, walking up and down the streets, going brains, and walking like zombies. It was a ton of fun. In fact, I think I've done it twice. I think I did it in 2009 and I did it in 2011. Give a shout out to a guy, Peter Genovese, who set that up for me, told me I had to check it out. It was a really good time. Who knew that, 10 years later, every day on the Metro would be the zombie walk. Until they instituted the Tap to Exit program at North Hollywood.
Yeah, Metro surveyed 100 riders at the North Hollywood station where this pilot program started. They say 9 in 10 feel safer and even notice those cleaner trains. The Tap to Exit policy went into effect at North Hollywood at the end of May, and now the chair of the Metro Board, County Supervisor Janice Hahn, she says she wants to see it expand across all of Metro.
Look at that. Janice just got on the job, and Janice is showing us that.
I love the bus driver.
She loved bus driver. She loved them so much.
Exit requires riders to tap their cards when they're entering and when they're exiting the train stations, which is supposed to ensure that every rider pays their fare. Now, it was noted in the recent uptick in crime on the lines that those involved in those crimes were actually not paying. They were the fare evaders. But some riders say this...
And you think the criminals would wise up and get a tap card and then they could still rob you because it's not like we have metal detectors. But that's got to happen soon. Or it should happen soon. I mean... what is stopping that from happening? I understand, and I don't even understand how exactly you would get metal detectors on a bus and how you would stop somebody with a weapon from getting on a bus without having a security presence on every single bus line. And I don't even know if that is feasible. But at least for these stations where you have a controlled entrance and a controlled exit, you know, you look at and you go to the Hollywood Bowl, those new metal detector gates that you go through, you don't even have to really stop. You don't have to get wanded, but you've got somebody there who can do something in case somebody is trying to get on the train with a weapon. And at least if we could do that with the trains, I don't know how we do it with the buses, but at least we could start doing it with the trains. And some of the bigger bus lines, like the Orange Line, there's got to be a way. Let's just all start thinking safety-minded. And so far, it's only been a week, so far, pleasantly surprised by Janice Hahn.
I love the bus driver.
I love bus driver, too.
But some riders say this program will only work as long as it is enforced.
They need more enforcement, and they need more guards to ride the train with us.
You notice how whenever the local news interviews Metro riders, they're saying we need more enforcement, we need more safety, we need more guards. And then when you go to the Metro board meeting, the people who show up for public comment are the activists who say defund the Metro police, free Metro for all we want is ambassadors.
They still get in. There you go, they still get in.
So the hard thing for the politician, and Janice Hahn does a better job than most. Janice Hahn and Catherine Barger are two of the more common sense voices on that board. Not saying much, but it's something. You got to ignore those people. The people who show up to yell at you at public comment are not representative of the masses. They just aren't. The bus riders union isn't a thing.
Yeah, our crew spotted a man being removed from the NoHo station, and we later found out it was because he didn't pay to ride. Metro says its Transit Watch app has shown a 40% decrease in reports of fights, graffiti, and drug use. And now the plan is to see how this could potentially work on the entire line. Now, the pilot program is supposed to last only until August. And then once that's over, it's possible this could be.
Okay, so that guy definitely saw that a news guy was doing a live hit and said, well, I'm going to throttle my hog.
This could become something permanent along both the train lines and the bus lines. Reporting live this morning, Universal City, I'm John Kathy's Klimak, today in LA.
So we'll keep looking at this. I, for one, am very glad. I think you take what worked at MacArthur Park, the highlighting, the blasting of classical music. You take what's working in North Hollywood, the tap to exit program. You've got successes that are showing reductions in crime. Show us that you care, and you do this to every single station. It should be standard. I love this. All we want is for the system to be safe, then convenient. Because right now I live in the Valley, and there's no convenient way to get to the West Side. But believe you me, there is an Expo line exit right next to the radio station. If there was a feasible and safe way for me to get there in a timely manner, I wouldn't be sitting on the 405. I could be playing Nintendo Switch the whole time. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email the show, you could do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Roger writes in and talks about some of the blight he's seen in his neighborhood. We had a rotten neighbor in Fullerton whose dog barked 24/7, who would get out and attack people. The city and the police refused to do anything about it. One day the dog got out and we called the police, and the dog attacked a small child. The police and the dog catcher showed up and the owner got belligerent. So they wrote a bunch of tickets, and a report was sent to the insurance company by one of the other neighbors, and they dropped him like a rock, and he was forced to leave, branded an irresponsible dog owner. Oh, I like that. If you've got a jerk who's not responsible with their dog, they got a big dog that's aggressive, that's not on a leash, that gets let out all the time, call their homeowner's insurance. That's a fun one. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. There are so many people that throw their hands up in the air and complain that there's nothing we can do about the homeless problem. Well, there is a man in Santa Monica who had homeless people in his parking garage harassing fellow tenants, and so he got real inventive. For more, here's KCal.
All over Southern California, homeowners and the homeless are living beside each other, sometimes as uneasy neighbors.
Most of the time.
KCal's Lori Perez introduces us to a Santa Monica man who's created a non-aggressive way for people to protect their property and themselves.
And I'm remembering it now, Lori, looking into the face of a 2-year-old, and she's catatonic and shaking. It tears your heart.
That was the moment Stephen McMahon says he knew he had to do something. The garage behind the Santa Monica condos, where he's head of the HOA, was plagued by scenes like this. People who are homeless looking for hidden places to use the bathroom or do drugs.
That is not what you want in a parking garage. That's not what your HOA fees go towards.
Terrifying neighbors and their children from getting in or out of their cars. So McMahon got to work, learning everything he could about circuit boards and converters, tinkering for months to make this, the Blue Chirper, what he calls...
He made a robotic light-up cricket.
This, the Blue Chirper, what he calls diversion security. He's installed 2 versions in the garages. They hook right into the electrical box. When a motion detector senses someone nearby, a blue light, like the ones DMV uses, starts flashing, and the chirping begins. And it won't.
Yeah, you know what? That might disturb somebody that's trying to find a quiet place to find the vein and shoot up.
And it won't stop until the person is gone. He checked with legal experts about how far he could take it.
She's as long as it's a sound found in nature, a cricket, and it's an act.
Maybe this is what they should do at the metro stations. Just make it all cricket noises all the time. Don't even need the classical music.
And it's an accurate, rendition of a cricket. Also, it's really hard to find a vein. If you've got an intense blue light blinking, it does something to your eyes so you can't see blue very well, so you can't find a vein to shoot up.
This guy's a genius. Maybe he should run for mayor of Santa Monica.
The combo works. Remember these guys? When they couldn't figure out how to stop the noise and lights, they left.
He comes.
The homeless have left. They've stopped terrorizing the neighbors. They stopped shooting up and doing drugs and going to the bathroom in the garage. This man is a bona fide hero. And I want to know where I can buy one of those crickets. Thank you all so much for listening every single day. So happy to be here. So happy to be doing this show every day. If you ever miss an episode, you can listen to all of them at kabc.com. Click on podcasts or go to the Apple Podcast app. Apparently, we're not on iHeart yet, so we'll find that out. I think we're on Spotify. But search for KABC News Blitz wherever you look for podcasts. Hopefully, we're there. Give us a subscribe. Download the episodes. Give a review. We'll see you tomorrow for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.